Hello, my name's Adam Shilton. I'm a founder, technologist, TEDx speaker, and I'm obsessed with answering the question, how can we become irreplaceable in the age of AI? So join me as we support you on your journey to becoming more prosperous, more purposeful, and more profitable. Please like and subscribe. In this episode, I talk with Jacob Bank, founder and CEO of Relay.app. Jacob studied in Stanford's AI lab, founded Timeful, an AI calendar app later acquired by Google, and worked as a product director at Google before launching Relay in 2021. Our conversation covers the biggest misconceptions about AI agents, why we should think of AI as hiring a bright college intern, the practical differences between AI workflows, agents, and co-pilots, how sales and marketing will evolve in an AI-powered world, the increasing value of trust and human connection in the age of AI, what it means to be irreplaceable as AI capabilities advance, and much, much more. So I hope you enjoy this illuminating conversation with Jacob Bank. Jacob, I am so excited to have you on. We've spoken before, and I don't think people are ready for this. I am.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah, no way. So we'll get straight into it. So AI agents, like it's your thing, right? Relay is what you do.
Yeah.
But there's so much confusion in the market right now. So why don't you kick off by telling us what the biggest misconceptions are around agents right now and how people need to start thinking about them?
Yeah. First, I think it's important to separate two sides of the issue. One side of the issue is from the creators and practitioners of AI agents, where there's a lot of debate about what makes something an agent. Is it a workflow? Is it an automation? Is it an agent? What is the technical definition of an agent? What frameworks are you using to create an agent? And we can talk a while about that whole side, but that's actually the side I don't care as much about because users and customers don't care about that. The part that users and customers care about is what can AI actually do for me today? Because I see a huge amount of underestimation of the capabilities of AI and also a bit of overestimation of the capabilities of AI, depending on what community you're in. So, for example, like I live here in San Francisco. It's very common to go to a coffee shop in San Francisco and hear people say things like, well, I was a little disappointed by Claude 3.7 Sonnet because it didn't seem like as big of a leap in emotional intelligence over 3.5 Sonnet as other people said it would be. And then you travel to another part of the world, the real world, and talk to a small business and like, AI can extract numbers from PDFs? That's amazing. And so here's like the starting point of how I think people should think about AI agents and AI more generally. What would you do if you could hire a really bright college intern to your company today? And that's not going to be a perfect analogy, but that'll get you pretty close. Would you ask a college intern to write the founding story of your company? No. Would you ask your college intern to be immediately in charge of your most high stakes sales call? No. Would you ask your college intern to quickly review all of your competitors' pricings and present a detailed summary to you of it? Yes. Would they do it perfectly the first time? No. You'd probably need to give them some guidance of make it look more like this, make it look more like that. And so I think it's easy because the way information tends to get communicated on social media. It's very easy to fall into one of these two camps, which is like AI is going to make all of us irrelevant tomorrow, or AI is totally overhyped and won't have any impact. And the right answer is, of course, somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. And so what I would suggest to everyone is there's no solution for just playing with tools yourself. It's so easy to play with them yourself. They all have a free version. You can sign up online. And so I'll give you an example. And this is not pertaining to agents specifically, just AI tools more generally. I was making a LinkedIn post a few days ago with my 8 favorite AI agents that I use myself. And I needed a little simple graphic for it that just had like a little, I don't know, some sort of little graphic that showed the 8 agents. And I was like, I'm really bad at making graphics. But I was like, oh, I bet there's like a college intern who's better at making graphics than I am. Like, let me go find one. And so I searched online, like, what's the best tool? And there's some image generators like Dolly and Midjourney, but those actually weren't right for this task because those create more like cinematic imagery when really I just needed a simple chart. I tried Canva AI, didn't quite work for me. And then I found this tool called Napkin AI, and it did exactly what I wanted, like super lo-fi, simple graphic. I was able to say like, hey, now make it blue. Now, make the icon in the middle this different thing. And so I think we all need to spend way less time like debating the future of AI agents, debating the technicalities of whether it's an agent, whether it's a workflow, debating the technicalities of what AGI and what isn't AGI. Just think about what tasks you need to get done in your business. Imagine like, could a good college intern with a bit of training do this? If so, go search for a tool that does that, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah, and that's a really good way of putting it. It's a tool at the end of the day. Like, does it do the tasks that you want it to be able to do? Until the point where it's not a tool anymore, and the humans become the tool, and they.
Yeah, and I do think so. This is why when I post a use case on LinkedIn, for example, a newsletter summarizer or a competitive intelligence researcher, I always say I made a new AI agent, even if it's technically not an AI agent. And the reason I do that is I think the word automation, which was kind of previously in vogue for tools like, Zapier and many others, the word automation, I think, is out. I wouldn't recommend using the word automation because automation implies to people robotic, mechanical. It's work to set up. Like, I have to be very technical to set it up. It's going to be, somewhat lower quality. Yeah, it'll be automated, but it'll be somewhat lower quality. And I think that sets the wrong framing in people's mind because I actually think, yes, AI is a tool, but it's a very different kind of tool from anything I've ever experienced before. It's a tool that can like meaningfully do human level intelligent work. And that's why I think the word agent has really caught on and become so powerful, not because people care about the technical definition of an agent, which is goal-oriented runtime tool calling, like who even knows what that means, but it symbolizes that it's doing work that previously a human like would have had to do because it requires some intelligence, it requires some judgment, it requires some insight.
I am actually surprised that the term agent has kicked off because I find it a bit creepy. And
Yeah.
I'm not
I think of the Matrix, right? Like Agent Smith.
yeah, but there's something like, and maybe it's just because I got too caught into the early release stuff because as
Yeah.
soon as ChatGPT was released, you had like Agent GPT, and that was kind of this like,
Right. And there were these things like baby AGI
yeah,
that were trying to be a bit more
that's
autonomous.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know, agent wouldn't have been the first word I'd have picked, but I think we landed on agent because all of the more natural words had a lot of baggage.
Mm.
So I think assistant would have been a very natural word, but assistant has so much baggage from like the Siri and Alexa days where, Siri and Alexa promised this AI assistant. And what can it do? It can set a kitchen timer for you. Like really, like that's what Alexa can do. It could set a kitchen timer and it can play music. And same thing with Siri. It can tell you like a very, very precise thing about like, oh, it's 62 degrees right now in San Francisco. But if you ask like, what about tomorrow? It'll be like, I don't know how to understand that question. And so the word assistant, which many of the early, like 10 years ago, AI productivity tools used, might have been a better fit, but that kind of had baggage. And agent was just sort of the new term that people could gravitate towards. I think one of the things that everyone should think about when they're adopting AI tools is I don't think the distinction between like an agent and an automation and a workflow is that important because all of those are AI behind the scenes doing work for you in the background. But the difference between an AI agent and an AI copilot is important. Those are fundamentally different ways of working with AI. So an AI copilot would be like, as I'm writing a document in Google Docs, I have a co-pilot next to me saying like, hey, you're being a little wordy here, or oh, you spelled this wrong, or oh, you might want to cite this source. But it's fundamentally like while I'm live interacting with the thing and it's helping me out, that's a co-pilot. And that's a mental model that does really fit into like it's a tool. It's a tool because it even like it sticks onto one of my tools and it helps me out.
Mm-hmm.
An agent or a workflow or an automation, on the other hand, is substantially different because it's doing work behind the scenes when I'm not watching it. Like an email has come in, it's automatically categorized it. Maybe it's automatically drafted a reply to it. Maybe it's automatically uploaded the attachments to Google Drive and analyzed them. And so that's, I think, why it feels fundamentally different to people and exciting, because now it's something that can not just help you as you're doing your work, which is awesome, but it can like take work end to end off of your plate.
So for me, the thing that's most interesting is going from this very rigid if this then that logic that has to be carefully mapped, to something that's less. I mean, there's still a structure, right? But because you've got something that acts more like a human brain, you don't have to be as complex in the way that you think about creating a workflow. So previously, I mean, you think about my make automations at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you take one of the ones, and again, I still need to log onto your platform to have a play with this.
Yeah.
But one of my workflows is the way that I manage my invoices, not from a sucking out the data perspective. I mean, I'm not big enough. Like literally, my expenses are paying for subscription, so I don't really,
Yeah.
I don't need to decode complicated invoices.
Right.
But there are quite a lot. So I've maybe got 20 or so that I pay for. They're all pretty low cost, but I've got a load of AI tools. I've got a load of all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And I'm a bit obsessive, and I want them all in the correct folders so that, like, in the advance that I get audited, I know exactly where to go and they're all filed in the right place. But then there's also VAT stuff, like, so I have to make sure that they're marked correctly, my bookkeeping system, and all of that sort of stuff. So at the moment, I've got a make automation that looks at a folder. Yeah, so they all go into the same folder. And then based on the sender email, it will pick out like where the folder needs to go. But there's so many branches in that. Yeah, so I've got a branch for each one of those different suppliers. And if the sender email were to change, then it breaks the branch. Whereas my guessing is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that with an agent, because you've got that element of cognition, you can say, just look at this folder. Whenever an email comes into this folder with a document attachment, move it into one of these folders based on what you can infer from that email. And it doesn't matter if the supplier email address changes a little bit, because it is smart enough to say, right, well, the sender is still this company. You see what I mean? So I think that's the real use case for having a more intelligent workflow, is that you don't have to work as hard and think of as many of the variables, and you can just more easily, like from a non-technical perspective, just throw a lot more of this stuff over the fence and say, get to it. Here are the apps. Like, you do your logic thing in the background. I'll be the human in a loop. And I think that's excellent, by the way, in your platform. I think that human in the loop concept is so valuable. And then just have a validation and say, yeah, no, happy with that.
This is such a great use case. And I think we now need to delve into the technical difference between an AI agent and an AI workflow, because it's actually relevant here. So you've put your finger on, I think, a very accurate observation, which is that the mechanical friction of creating this complete if this then that workflow when you have 20 different folders, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work. And you have to be pretty technical. You have to know how to filter based on the sender address and how to set up the right path and the right branch or the right router, depending on what tool you use and what you call it. It's painful to add a new one. There are probably only a few million people in the world that are capable of setting that up, what you've done in Make, whereas there are hundreds of millions of people in the world who have that problem. Mm-hmm. So I fundamentally agree with your observation that we need a more flexible, fluid, natural language-based experience where you can say, hey, AI, I get invoices sometimes. Here's some examples of invoices, and I want to put them in the right folder in Google Drive. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. I want to take these invoices, I want to put them in the right folder in the Google Drive. Can you help me make a workflow that does that? But I would actually still recommend that for this case, you want an AI workflow and not an AI agent. Because an AI agent is, you're basically saying, you give it a goal and you give it some tools you can call when you're achieving that goal. So for a true AI agent, you would say, Adam, I want you to file my receipts. The tools I'm giving you access to are you can add files to Google Drive and you can read my emails. Go. And I think that's actually the wrong approach for this problem. A, because you're putting too much risk into the system. You don't need all those degrees of freedom of adding any arbitrary Google Drive file or reading any email. And second, it's expensive and slow. You're asking AI to do a bunch of reasoning when really it's doing a simple if this then that rule. And so what I actually think you want here is a workflow, an AI workflow that is facilitated by natural language creation. That maybe, and this is why I think the definition between an agent and a workflow gets murky, because what if the way you articulate to the product is like, hey, I want you to do this for me. And then you'd come back to me and say, great, here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to look for incoming emails that have invoice and an attachment. I know that all of your invoice folders live in this parent folder, and I'm going to find the right folder for the thing. Is it okay if I do that for you every time? Then you say yes. And so I'll give you another example of where I think it's really dangerous to use AI. You need to pick the right tool for the job. So I had a workflow where I wanted to tally up some numbers in a spreadsheet. I basically, each row in a spreadsheet was like a person and then an entry of a number of points that they got. And I needed to make a leaderboard. So it's sort of like it's like a group by and then a sum. And I was asking AI models to do this. This is a very hard task for even the best AI models. Like even the most, up-to-date Claude 3.5 Sonnet at the time could do it with 95% accuracy. O1 could do it with 100% accuracy, but at a huge cost and very slow. Summing up numbers in a spreadsheet is like 2 lines of JavaScript. That's very simple. And so the right answer to that question was like, ask AI to generate the code, but then run the same code every time. And so my perspective is that we should all like the word agent because it communicates human intelligence and human kind of creativity and insight and the kinds of things that you can delegate. I've actually seen a relatively small number of cases where an AI agent is actually better than an AI workflow. Mm-hmm. What you want is you want a really easy experience to describe, hey, AI, here's what I want you to do for me. But then you want the AI to give you a plan and say, yeah, here's how I'm going to do it for you. Does this look right every time? And here's where I'm going to ask for your opinion. The one case where I've seen AI agents, like true AI agents, where you give it a high level goal and some tools and you say, go do your thing, are like research use cases. Because research use cases are very difficult to define as a workflow. Like, how would you, let's say I want to research you and your podcast and your company. I could try to define a workflow that's like, hey, Google him, extract the results, scrape the top 10 web pages, look on LinkedIn, scrape the results, analyze it. But really, for a research use case, I just want to say like, here's Adam, go find stuff on LinkedIn, on the web, do your best, come back to me with a synthesized thing. But in any case, for example, where an email needs to be written, I don't think an agent is the right tool for that job today. I think an AI workflow is the right tool for that job. Because like, let's say you get an inquiry from a potential client and you want to respond to them with an email. I don't think you want to just say like, hey, AI agent, respond to all my potential clients with as many emails as you want. What you want is something a little more structured than that, which is like, see whether the client is a good fit based on your ICP, look up some research about them on the web. Maybe you want an agent for that specific component. But then you kind of want to know at the end, I'm going to send an email. It's going to look roughly like this, and I'm going to get to review it before it goes out. And so that's why I find it a little frustrating when people, when I post something online and people say, oh, that's not technically an agent. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's not technically an agent, but this is like the way more useful way for most people.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's like sometimes to educate, you've got to get past that initial barrier. So the people that are commenting on your post to the people that are technical, but like it's more useful if you can get it in front of people.
Yeah, and that's not the audience. Right? That's not the audience I'm trying to reach. The audience I'm trying to reach is people who have like never even thought of what AI can do for them. And I try to give them just one specific example. Like invoices is a perfect example. Like, do you spend a couple hours every month categorizing your invoices into folders and putting them in a spreadsheet? Like AI can do that for you today already. It's ready now. You just have to set it up.
Yeah. And coming back to your point on, so use the example of a prospect that might be emailing in.
Yeah.
So this is my territory. So for people that have been staying close to me, I've had a bit of a rebrand recently. So I'm going back to my roots. I've spent the past 15 and a half years in sales and marketing. So
Yeah.
my new focus is systems to help SMEs grow their sales and marketing, essentially. But what we're finding more and more now is the concept of AI outreach.
Yeah.
And I'm in two minds about this because, on the one hand, I think AI agents, even though they're effectively AI workflows, because they're not really doing much autonomously, they are within rigid boundaries and they should be for AI outreach. Um, on the one hand, I believe that for a junior salesperson, having AI do the majority of the heavy lifting is going to be an improvement if they're
Yeah.
a novice.
Right.
But for somebody who's experienced and has run 100 outreach campaigns, understands copywriting, understands human nature, I think the AI can only be a co pilot. Because I think if you just rely on the AI generating the messaging and trusting it to understand your persona, it can be a step down. And especially if you're not, so I see this all the time at the moment, and we discussed this on our last call, right? You
Yeah.
have an auto-generated AI email, and I've posted quite vocally about this on LinkedIn as well. And
Yeah.
it's done a quick bit of research on information that's in the public domain. Yeah, so it's scraped a profile, it's seen a recent post, and it said, "Oh, I love that post, like amazing, really love that." And you're like,
It's
"Well,
so funny. Anytime I get a cold message on LinkedIn, it's like, I love blah. I'm like, fake, fake. No one would ever say that to me.
people just don't speak like that. Do you know what I
Yeah, no,
mean?"
like no one who's actually a fan of my product or content would ever speak like that.
Absolutely, and your point on the last call, and I agree with this, is if you're doing it at scale, and it's not quite spam, but it's kind of almost spam. It will become spam.
Yeah.
Um, you're damaging your brand doing stuff that way.
Yeah.
So what I've been experimenting with, and I think we'll probably have another conversation about this at some point because it's more your bag in terms of the mechanics. But for me, the most respect you can pay to somebody that you're approaching is to A, have done your research, and
Yeah.
B, to be respectful of their time. So when you look at the top performing outreach campaigns, and this could be LinkedIn, email, even on the phone, like it doesn't matter. Um, it's short, concise. There's a clear value proposition, and there's a way to opt in or out, right? But the difficulty comes in doing that specific research because
Yeah,
I
I think this
well,
was such a great insight you shared with me on your last on the last call. Which was people are putting a ton of time into personalizing the message, often in these fake sounding ways. But I remember you kind of asked me like, "Hey, which cold emails have you clicked on? Like, what's actually worked for you?" And in my case, the message didn't have to be good if it was a problem I actually had. And so I just got like a really lame, bad, cold message,
yeah,
but it was a problem I really had. Like, we're having a hard time shipping swag to India right
yeah.
now, and the message was just like, we ship swag internationally, good prices. Look here, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that's actually a problem I have right now. So I'm going to click on that, even though the message is terrible. And so I wonder if we should be channeling our AI not into like trying to write the perfect message, which I think it can do research, it can help suggest messages, but you're probably going to write a better message. But like, boy, AI should be spending all that time figuring out who to target.
And you are absolutely right. So there's platforms now like Clay. So
Yeah.
you and I spoke about that one on the previous call as well. But when I look at my workflow for either when I do it myself or I talk with teams, I think in terms of what are those trigger events, because it's
Yeah.
all about timing. Yeah.
Right.
So like you might have a problem in 3 months that I'm messaging you about now that you don't know is a problem, so you're not going to respond to it. Likewise, if you've already solved that problem, then you're not going to respond to a message that you get 3 months later, right? So
Right.
because of stuff like new people joining companies, acquisitions, like taking on new sales team members and all of that sort of stuff. But this is
Right.
where it gets difficult for an AI because a lot of that data isn't publicly available or isn't easily publicly available. So you look at some of the specific stuff that I look for, especially when I'm working with sales and marketing teams. It's like, how many BDMs have they taken on in the last 12 months?
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to, I don't even think you can do it through the LinkedIn API. So at the moment, you've got to go into Sales Navigator, you've got to go into the company, and you've got to see, right, okay, well, what's the insight in terms of hiring and firing, or like
Right.
joiners and leavers, or whatever the most appropriate term is.
Yeah.
But actually, even more than that, to actually see the specific role, you need to filter by people that sit within the sales team and the BDM team. And unless you've got, and I think, Claude, I don't know whether chat GPT operator type stuff, they can actually see your screen and it can come back and say, oh, I've just opened.
And I personally have not gotten either Claude computer use or operator to work for
Right.
anything real
Neither have
yet.
I. So, so,
Um,
so at the moment, my value is being able to put a specific message in front of somebody,
yeah.
and that is a problem that AI can't solve at the moment, because I
Right.
can't get an agent to say, click through Sales Navigator, open their sales and BDM team, and write the first line of the message that says, I see you've got three BDMs that have started in the first 12 months.
Right.
That is the personalization. So to a business owner like yourself, right? Like, you
Yeah.
don't want to read more than three lines. Yeah, you
Right.
want somebody coming in saying, right, I've noticed this about you. Like, so, and
Not only do I not want to, just because of the viewport on LinkedIn, I just don't like if I can't see your whole message in the mobile viewport on LinkedIn, I'm not even gonna read it. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So again, I feel like some of these platforms are solving for the wrong problem. And I
yeah,
was I was testing yesterday, actually, because I wonder whether, like, the base models without any custom instructions or anything like that are
yeah,
getting any better at this sort of stuff, and they are. But I basically
yeah,
said to both ChatGPT 4.5 now, which I I honestly don't see a difference between like 4.5
yeah,
and 4.0, and Claude 3.7. And actually, with Claude 3.7, some of my projects, my custom instructions actually became worse with the update. I don't know why, but like,
interesting.
really
Yeah,
annoying that, and this is annoying, like the rate of change, right? If people have got like a bot that's working, for them to have to go back and re-engineer every time a model updates, that's so annoying. Like,
yeah,
it's technical debt, isn't it, that you don't really want to be building.
right,
Anyway, so I basically said to ChatGPT 4.5 and Claude 3.7, write me a cold email. Like, write
right,
me a cold email, 5 words. Yeah. So,
yeah,
you can't get any simpler than that. And it produced like a page of A4.
yeah, yeah.
Both of them started with, I hope this message finds you well, which again now is just instant delete.
Did they start with my favorite cold email opener? Was I see you two are in California. We have so much in common.
Oh,
Like,
there we go. I mean, the Claude one was better because it at least gave more like opportunities to personalize. So it gave more of a
right.
template rather than a
Yeah,
message.
yeah, got it.
Really good. But either way, too long, too frilly, not really identifying a key challenge. It needed to be like a third of the length or whatever. So this
Yeah,
is something that we still need to be mindful of in terms of domain expertise. And what I'd like to see, and I found this actually with the ChatGPT deep research,
yeah,
is if you click on the deep research button now and you say, I want you to do this research, blah 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 blah,
right.
it won't do it straight away. So it will come back.
Exactly. It will ask you for some clarification of like, do you want me to look for just these sources or also these sources?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what I want now, like with my base interaction with AI, like
Yeah.
when you speak to a human, right? Like if I asked you a question with no context, right,
Right.
and you didn't understand, like you wouldn't guess, like, because you don't want to look like a fool, right? You'd say,
Right.
but what do you mean? Like, can you be more specific? Yeah.
Right.
And I think obviously because AI is like keen to please and it doesn't want to create barriers or whatever, like, plus I think to engineer like a clarification step into
Well,
all of these models is
and
like really awkward.
here's a technique that I found very generally valuable that may even help folks doing cold email like you're doing is just give 3 examples of good ones you've written in the past.
100%.
Like that for me has been the highest ROI thing by far with AI models, which is just like I want I want to write a LinkedIn post about this conversation I had with Adam. Here's a transcript of it. Like this is probably something I'm going to do when you send me the transcript of this. And it'll probably come up with something that's too fluffy, too flowery. It's going to use a bunch of hashtags. It's not going to be my voice and tone the way I communicate on LinkedIn because I have a very sort of like practical, concise kind of style. And I'll just give it, I'll say, no, here's 3 posts I've written. Make it more like those. And then it's amazing. It's really amazing at mimicking style.
Really quick, guys, as you know, I don't have sponsors on the show. So to help me, it would be great if you could share with just one other person, leave a review, give a thumbs up, and subscribe. It really does make a difference. Now back to the show.
Yeah, and I actually found a tool, and I'm experimenting with it at the moment. And something else that I've paid for that's going to be added to my supplier workflow in makeup, I'm sure. Is I think it's called Magic Post. Let me have a look here. And there's a ton of these like all over the place. They're basically just domain specific AIs.
Right. Yeah.
And like I've got a couple of custom instructions in Claude that help me write better hooks, that like help me ideate, like think of different ideas and all that sort of stuff. But it still feels quite manual at the moment. Like there's a lot of brain space that goes into, right, well, like let's think of these topics and these ideas or whatever.
Right.
Magic Post is geared up for LinkedIn, and I'm not affiliated in any single way, but it's quite cool because it's got an ideation section where you can enter a topic. And because it knows the formats that are working well on LinkedIn, you know, actionable, contrarian, motivational stories, all of that sort of stuff, it will give you 6 or 7 different ideas with different hooks. It's got a hook writer in there as well that splits across 2 lines because the 2 lines work really well in LinkedIn. But the reason I mention it is when you first sign up for it, it scrapes your LinkedIn posts.
Right.
And then you can choose when it generates a new post for you, because it will generate the content as well, whether you want it to generate it in your voice or whether you want it to generate an idea that's not in your voice. Yeah. And you and I, we do that just by feeding that into the AI that we're using. But I guess it's nice to see some of these tools that are making that barrier to entry lower. And, and it's exactly the same. Like when you look at Excel, so to like a finance pro, you know, or somebody in operations who's like an absolute expert, because they've got niche processes, they rely on Excel because it's the only way to really track stuff and have that complete flexibility over stuff. I think AI is the new Excel in that sense, whereby people who are used to it can just go in and say, right, well, no, this is the most flexible for me. I can create from scratch, and you know, that's that. But then we will have, to people that aren't Excel pros or AI pros, a generation in the same way that we've always had these domain specific tools specific.
Totally. It's so funny you mentioned that, because in many ways we're positioning our product, or we're thinking about our product related app as a spreadsheet equivalent of the AI era, where every business in every role can use it for a wide variety of different use cases at a wide variety of levels of technical sophistication. But there will also be dedicated CRMs and dedicated project management tools and dedicated financial modeling tools. Like everything that you can do in Excel, there are dozens of successful companies doing those specific things, but there's also a very successful horizontal player. And I think we're going to see the same in AI tooling. There will be very successful horizontal players that can do many different things in one platform with a lot of customizability and flexibility. And there will be very successful dedicated tools like the one that you mentioned specifically for LinkedIn posting.
Yeah, and I think, again, it all depends on what you want to be able to do. And I think the difficulty moving forwards is going to be, right, well, there is so much now of it. Like any kid in his bedroom can develop an app now with AI.
Right.
You know, and obviously companies like yours, where you've got a lot of brain power and a lot of experience, you produce high quality products, right? But there's going to be a lot of shit products coming up as well. So I think that's going to become more and more of a challenge. So being able to get that trustworthy piece ticked is going to be
and so this is I'm curious to hear your thoughts about how go to market is going to evolve in light of this, because in a world where it's so much easier to blast out these semi-personalized cold emails, in a world where it's so much easier to blast out thousands of SEO optimized, search engine optimized articles, like what is go to market going to look like? And so for me, what I've been thinking about is, what is it going to be an effective and durable way to get new customers? And so I'm actually we're not doing any cold email. We're not doing any SEO anymore. What I'm doing are much more kind of like personal content and community driven efforts. So I post on LinkedIn, I host office hours, I do build with me sessions. These then create YouTube artifacts, but it's not just like an auto-generated YouTube video. Like, it's actually me on the call, and I make mistakes too, and I show you how I work through the mistakes. And people, many of our customers now feel this, like, I have a personal relationship with like hundreds of our customers, and it's very, very cool. And I think we're actually going to see go-to-market shift more in that direction, where, like you said, in a world where there's millions of apps out there, it's kind of like when you're trying to find a home service provider, like a plumber. How do you do it? You don't really go to Yelp or Google anymore, because you can't trust those. What you go to is like either people you have a relationship with that you've built over time through trust, or you use the trust of other people that you already trust, like word of mouth. And so what I'm thinking about is like, how can we build a go-to-market strategy that's built around word of mouth and trusted recommendations, and then also enabling people to build trust with me without having to make some big commitment to our product. You can watch a couple YouTube videos. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can come to one of my office hours and ask a question. And often I see people kind of interacting with me at like 5 or 6 of these touch points and then become paying customers. And so I don't know if that's going to be a more general shift that we're going to see happening, but it is something I would recommend that, go-to-market teams think about, is like, what is the durability of our approach in a world, like, for example, what you mentioned is this, like, these kind of outbound campaigns that are very hard for AI to do because the data is not available. They rely on personal context.
Yeah.
Like, those are going to be durable, right? Like those plays are going to be durable. If your play is like generating a bunch of programmatic SEO that anyone can do, like, that's maybe not going to be as durable.
Yeah. So I think about this a lot, because the market is going to change fundamentally to a trust-based model.
Right.
So I'm quite close to Will Barron, and Will Barron is the founder and owner of the domain salesman.com and the Selling Made Simple and the salesman.com podcast, which is the most downloaded sales podcast in the world. And he does sales training predominantly. So he's helped a lot of sales teams and small business owners with his training program, Selling Made Simple, like no bullshit. Like I've been through it. Like I signed up when it first came out. But he quite rightly recognized that the market is shifting. And his term now, and I think he's about to release the book. The training is live, I think, in his platform, called Market of One. Which previously, you can refer to it as niching down, becoming a industry expert, the go-to essentially. So the view there is every salesperson or small business owners needs to become their own market of one. Yeah, so your market of one right now is horizontal AI agents. So you need to double down on that. Yeah, so anybody thinks about a general use case for an AI agent, they need to be able to come to you. And obviously you've started that already and you're doing really well. You're going to go past me in terms of followers and reach and all that sort of stuff as well, because you've got far more interesting stuff to talk about than I do. But yeah, so that's the one thing. You've got that ability to create that top of funnel interest that then over time filters down into bottom of funnel. And you've got the other advantage as well, which is of course you can start for free, which is the best way to prove, and that comes in line with trust as well, because what you're not saying is that I'm going to drive a load of traffic to a website and then I've got 3 options, all of which are payable, and then people can't try before they buy. And I think that is where that trust factor comes in as well, is because you're saying, right, well, like, try it, like, if you don't like it, then don't buy it. Like, we're not hyped.
Yeah, and it's so funny, like, that's my first reaction whenever we have kind of a hidden call to action to book a demo on our website. People are like, I have to ask all these questions, I want to hear the sales pitch. I'm like, no, the product, like, I'm happy to answer any questions, but like, you got to try the product first, because like, if the product doesn't feel useful to you or doesn't solve a problem, like, nothing I say in the sales pitch is going to matter. Like, I can correct a misconception you have, I can point you to a feature that you may not have found, but like, fundamentally it should stand on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And say the only time that changes if you did start targeting like maybe larger organizations where you wanted
Yeah.
to do a proof of concept, and then they're
Right.
like, our greatest challenge is X. Like, can you
Yeah.
show us how to do that on the platform? And then it's more worthwhile for you because you've got like a 30 user deal as opposed to just an individual use case, right? But anyway, maybe a conversation for the future. But just to come back on the way that the market's shifting is that market one isn't just about being able to produce content that shows you as an expert, because there's enough generic content. It's exactly the same as SEO, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like
Right. Right.
you could produce like 1,000 faceless LinkedIn posts in an instant now.
Right.
But the quote I always think about is, before people will buy from you, they need to know that you understand them. And the way that people know that you understand them is if you have a story that connects with theirs. And I know you're like quite hot on like obviously showcasing your tool at the moment, which is the right thing to do. Like, I can't believe how passionate you are about it. I don't think I've met anybody who's quite as passionate as you about it. But
Well, let's stick a pin in that, because I want to make a kind of a point that I've learned in the last couple months about that.
yeah, which is good. But I think, I'm trying, and it's uncomfortable for me because
Yeah.
I don't really open up that much. Is I've been trying to do more selfie type posts.
Yeah.
And they get more engagement. They don't necessarily get much more distribution because you do get a lot of attention from your existing network that already knows you, right?
Right.
But being able to let people in a little bit more, providing it's on theme, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
like tell a random story about like, how
Yeah.
you like, I don't know, forgot to pick up the shopping last week and you lost 2 hours and the car got
Yeah.
smashed or whatever. Like, people don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But a story that aligns with either a journey that they're about to have, or a journey that they have had, or a problem that they have to solve that you manage to figure out from a personal perspective, people then connect with you, and then you've got the ability to build trust, firstly at that top of funnel through LinkedIn or whatever the other platform is. But then in terms of business strategy, and it obviously depends on your sales and marketing, but like newsletters, like quarterly releases, whatever it happens to be, these are all opportunities to build that brand that shares that story. And then as the business scales, it will get to a point where you don't just want to be the only person who owns the distribution. Yes, your brand at that point is at the point where you can do all sorts of things with it because you've got that much of a following. But then it's
Right.
up to your sales guys or your product team or your marketing team to bring their own thoughts and ideas, and then all of the team is contributing to this on brand, like enthusiastic story about how general purpose AI agents are going to really transform businesses. And I think that's going to be the key. It's not going to be this generic cookie cutter type sales and marketing approach that we've seen before. It's going to be more of a human. We are real people. These are our perspectives. Like, this is how you can identify and connect with us, and here's how we can help you. And it's the only thing that's gonna work moving forwards, I think.
Yeah. 2 points that come to mind as you're saying that. The first is I did a lot of experimenting on LinkedIn over the last year before I kind of figured out what worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a pitfall that a lot of people fall into is it's pretty easy to get impressions and gain followers by mimicking sort of like the hot take post of the day. Like, you probably saw the big HubSpot SEO drop whatever a month ago, where I probably saw 50 different posts on LinkedIn that all had a lot of engagement about that same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build a following very quickly by sort of repeating gossip or repeating LinkedIn platitudes. But that following will not necessarily be valuable unless your business is selling like LinkedIn platitudes. And so for me, like, I had a few posts do really well a year ago that were just about other sort of Silicon Valley gossip, like the acquihire of Adapt and a couple other things. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, I don't want my personal brand or our company brand to be about Silicon Valley gossip. I want my personal brand to be, I provide really practical, useful advice for small businesses who are trying to use AI.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I shifted my post style to just be like, hey, I was helping this ice salesman. Here's the thing we set up. Here's what it does for him. It's pretty cool. Check it. Let me know if you want to check it out. My post just started like absolutely skyrocketing. And the cool thing about it was like, not only were they doing really well, it felt authentic to me and my communication style and what I want to do. And it was also useful for the business because it was actually, I know that every single person who follows me on LinkedIn, because most of them have come in through these very practical AI use case oriented posts, like they actually care about this topic. The other thing I've noticed is that like, people are so allergic to self-promotion about your product, right? Like the posts that are like, I'm excited to announce this new feature, total duds. The posts that are like, the posts that have done really well for me, and maybe if this, I don't know, interesting to your audience, I can show you my posts and all the kind of the impressions they've got so people get a sense of it. I'm happy to screen share. But like, there are two formats of posts that do well for me. One is, here's a specific AI use case that I built for myself or that I built for a customer.
Yep.
Here's a 5 bullet point summary of what it does. Here's a quick GIF showing how it works. Like, let me know if you want to try it out. And the second is educational posts, which is just like, hey, I just found out this new thing and I'm going to do a 1 hour like interactive session where I'll show you how to do it. And those two both do insanely well because there's so much demand now for practical, real, concise like guidance about how to actually use AI.
Yep.
That doesn't feel like an overproduced launch video. People don't like I've seen some friends actually who produced really, really good launch videos and just crickets, no engagement on them. And then I make a random post about a webinar I'm doing and it gets 700,000 impressions on LinkedIn, which was a total surprise to me. But like, it turns out like, and I think that's an insight that hopefully people can use, which is like, people don't want to see the brand oriented self-promotion. People want to see like valuable educational content that is coming from a real human, like you said, who understands them and is trustworthy.
Yeah, that's it. And the dude I've got quite a lot of respect for is a dude called Matt Barker, who's a copywriter. So he's a Brit. I think he lives in Cyprus now. I bought one of his courses. Like I'd spent a load on courses because like writing is of interest to me, and I always want to get better. Like you've got to invest in yourself. Blah 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 blah. But his take is against vanity metrics, which is 100%. So to your point earlier about people copying the platitudes, like trying to cheat the algorithm, yes, the numbers might go up, but will the money you make or the business you generate off the back of it go up? Now, it's easy to get sucked into that. And I spent about 3 months getting sucked into that last year, which is fine. But the thing I'll say about like LinkedIn influencers, LinkedIn communities, and all of that sort of stuff, nothing wrong with them at all if that is your business model. So if your business model is an individual creator or solopreneur or whatever you want to call yourself, and you want to make money from building a newsletter and affiliates and sponsorships and all of that sort of stuff, fill your boots. Because to somebody that wants an ad in your newsletter, they only care about the newsletter numbers and whether the audience is relevant or not. Like if somebody wants you to do a sponsored LinkedIn post for them, again, like they're just going to be looking at the follower numbers. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like don't get me wrong, it's a viable business model. But it's important not to get mixed up in that if that isn't your intention, because you will save yourself a lot of mental stress. And again, this is something that I've been getting over with like 2 years ago when I was doing the viral posts and getting them, like seeing them doing really well. And now having the odd post that still only does 500 impressions, like like that mental battle that says like, am I a failure? And you're not. All it means is that you are being more qualified in the way that you write. So Matt's perspective is you want to focus on the person and the problem. And like to your point about like, here's something that I helped a small business owner with. Who's that going to resonate with? Not all of LinkedIn, but it's going to resonate with small business owners, and therefore you are more likely to get followers and signups from small business owners because that's the way that your content is formed. And I think people need to think more in terms of that. I think as businesses become smaller, and I'm hoping they become smaller over time, I'm hoping that, I mean, there's still going to be ginormous business.
It's gonna like this is gonna happen. Like if you look at the hottest companies right now, Cursor, Bolt, Lovable, they all have like sub 25 employees. That's just going to be the way companies are built in the future. You can do way more with way fewer people.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have like more niche targeted audiences, your content needs to reflect that. And I think the whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, I think the algorithms are going to favor that because, as I mentioned to you on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has got a problem because more people are starting to post. Yeah,
Yeah.
they want to be fair to the smaller creators that have less followers. And
Right.
the only way that they can do that is to promote content that is consistently relevant to keywords for that individual.
Right.
Yeah, because otherwise, how do you make it fair? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think if you can start posting and latch onto a keyword, and that's why my impressions have tanked recently because
Mm.
previously I'd just talk about finance and technology, finance and technology, finance and technology, and therefore
Yeah.
the algorithm was seeing that
The algorithm knew, oh, when Adam posts finance and technology, like boost it. Yeah.
absolutely, but now that it's shifted towards more SME, sales
Yeah.
marketing, tech, that sort of stuff, I think LinkedIn is just reeling to say, right, well, you were kind of doing this, but you're now kind of doing this. So I don't really know whether to promote it or not. And also, if you build a
Yeah.
following in one area, and again,
Right.
we listen and learn, right? And you build a
Yeah.
following of, say, like, the majority of my following is still finance professionals, and like absolutely fine. Like they have supported me no end, and I'm very grateful to have the support that I've had to date. But LinkedIn looks at the reaction from your first, like from your followers before it then promotes to the rest of LinkedIn.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if your existing followers aren't engaging, then LinkedIn's not going to take it any further. So I'm fighting a bit of an
Right.
uphill battle at the moment, but I don't care because what I'm writing about now, I enjoy writing about more. I have more experience in. I can offer more of a perspective. So yes, it's slowed down
Yeah.
now, but consistently
Right.
over time, it will be absolutely fine. So
The other thing that we've noticed is I think video and YouTube is underappreciated as a medium right now.
yeah.
So I've been posting these hour-long YouTube videos,
Mm.
which is like I thought who's gonna sit down for an hour and watch it, but it's a really deep tutorial. It's like watch me for an hour, try to actually do something,
Yeah.
and do it along with me.
Yeah.
And these have been performing super well. Like again, our YouTube numbers are small, so but we went from like 800 YouTube subscribers to 4,000 YouTube subscribers in the last month, just based on these like deep tutorial videos. And I would take, if I could have either my 4,000 YouTube subscribers or my 27,000 LinkedIn followers, I'd take the 4,000 YouTube
Yeah.
subscribers because I know that those people are really qualified. They really care. They want to watch this like deeper, long form content. You want to. I'm happy to have both because LinkedIn for me is more top of funnel, like make people aware of AI and agents and what you can do with them, and YouTube is more mid funnel, like okay, you're not ready to try the product yet, but like spend a few minutes watching how it works. And so I think that's a combination that I think has worked well for us, and I think will work well for a lot of companies, which is you find some sort of Twitter or LinkedIn top of funnel, and then your mid funnel in your videos and your email newsletter, like that's where you can actually take people who have heard of you and get them to convert and engage.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I think you've hit the nail on the head, and I'd agree on the YouTube piece. So I don't post a ton on YouTube. The podcast goes on YouTube, but as
Right.
soon as it becomes part of the podcast playlist, I don't know whether YouTube does something to it, but I don't think it's promoted in the same way as a regular video is. But
Mm.
to your point, like my longer videos do better than the short ones ever did. I actually got rid of all my YouTube shorter videos
Uh-huh.
just because I didn't really feel natural, like talking about them, all that sort of stuff. But no, you look at massive accounts like Alex Hormozy, who's like
Yeah.
Mr. Business. Some of his YouTube videos are 3 hours, like
Yeah.
because they're like entire seminars, entire presentations. But yeah, you're dead right. Like if people trust you enough to watch an hour's worth of your content, then that
That's a pretty good sign that they have the problem or trust you or some combination of both.
be closer to you, and like your churn's going to reduce as well,
Yeah.
because like if they're seeing consistent content on how the platform can help them, then why would they go anywhere else? And you're just taking that share of people's attention. But no, we're coming up to time,
Yeah.
Jacob, and as we discussed, like I've got to nip downstairs in a second to sort the kids out. But I want to ask you the question that I'm now asking to podcast guests, and I didn't prep you for this, so I'm
Okay.
interested in the answer. Um, but I spend quite a lot of time talking about thinking about the future, not just for me, but for my kids and all of that sort of stuff. And I like the concept of thinking that humans can become irreplaceable in some sense, which is contrary to a lot of thoughts, especially from like AI and futurists and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm curious to know what it means to you to be irreplaceable.
I think there are two elements of irreplaceability. The first is the most durable one, which comes from the trust and warmth of human connection. And there are certain vocations where that is required. So, for example, my kids I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and they go to preschool. AI is never going to be their teachers. Like, yes, there may be an AI component to the instruction that teaches them how to do math and reading, and that would be awesome. I would love it if they had a great personalized AI to do math and reading. But sometimes they're crying and they need a hug. And sometimes, they can't tie their shoes and they get frustrated. And those are physical attributes, but more so it's like the warmth and the understanding and the human relationship. And this preschool teacher is one example, but there are many, many, many jobs, including many in the corporate world, where the primary role is like creating a personal connection where you trust me and I trust you, and we can work together. And so I think that's the most durable. And the second most durable are like the specific skills that will be very hard for AI to ever do. Like, it's going to be really hard for AI to ever help a 5-year-old tie their shoes. Like to make a humanoid robot that can and for example, we just had some work done on our home, and there was some pretty gnarly plumbing stuff of like getting in there and analyzing the issue and looking where the leak is, and like that's going to be very mechanically hard for computers to do. And so I think the nature of number two will change. The nature of number one is just like human nature, and that won't change. Like, we will always need to have trusted relationships with other humans. And number two, as AI becomes more capable, those things will change. But I do believe that there will always be skills that humans have that computers and robots don't have. And so when I think about like, man, what is the workplace going to look like in 20, 25 years when my kids grow up? It's crazy. But if I can make them decent, warm, trustworthy, resilient people, like, they're going to find a way to be successful.
So hold that thought. I'm just going to grab the door and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always forget to unlock the door downstairs, and the kids turn up, and there's bells, and there's crashing.
Yeah.
But I think that some incredibly valid thoughts there. I mean,
and how cool, by the way, how cool would that be if our jobs just got to be about like warm human social connection and we didn't have to do all the other stuff? Like, that'd be so cool.
yeah, I think I think the only thing that people are going to have to get over if that becomes the case is their egos.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you are inevitably going to build an incredibly successful business. Like, the amount of passion and energy you've got, there's no way that you can fail. And then in the future, like, this overriding super intelligence says, oh, by the way, Jacob, like, you don't need to build that anymore. Like, don't worry about that. Like, just spend time with your kids. Like, you're thinking, right, well, what's my purpose? Like,
but even in the context of my work, like, I would love it if the AI could give me content ideas and write the blog posts and help me write the video scripts and build new integrations into our product and build new features in our product. But like, I still think our users are going to want to show up to office hours with me.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm a human that they can trust and explain their problem to, and I can understand and empathize and help them. And so if my whole job became hosting office hours with our customers, that'd be the dream. That would be amazing.
And I think more people need to think in exactly that way. So coming back to the irreplaceability piece, I think people actually need to find ways to replace themselves, because unless you manage that, you're not going to be able to find out for yourself what it means to go to that next level, to be truly valuable in terms of the other stuff that you've just mentioned, right? Like if I am thinking about like copy and pasting text onto a blog post, or I'm thinking about like, writing out a LinkedIn post from start to end, like when you think about, and slight tangent, right? So one of my favorite series is a program called Mad Men. So it's about Madison Avenue in New York, like a marketing firm, and Don Draper, who's the creative director there. And old school, like you'd have a team of copywriters, like it could be massive teams, like, and you'd have weekly meetings, and all of the copywriters would have like 20 different ideas each, and they just throw everything together and be like, and the creative director would say, that's rubbish, that's good, that's rubbish, do 3 more versions of that, and then I think we're getting there. And I think that's the way that people need to be thinking. Like, so you are the creative director, and it's just that the human isn't bringing you the ideas anymore. There's
Right.
a different type of intelligence. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it's any less useful, but it means that your niche expertise and your domain expertise becomes even more important, because you need to be able to have that idea. You need to be able to have that perspective. You need to be able to have that angle. So I think it's going to be moving forwards about the quality of ideas and how much you can actually legitimately help people. And it comes back to your point previously about go to market. The best way to build a business is to make something shareable and so good that it is shared. Yeah, so good that it's shared and so good that customers never churn. Yeah, and that's what you need to focus on. How can we make this offering so good that it cannot fail? And you're not going to do that if your brain's caught up on all of the pointless shit that a machine can do, right?
Right. It's exciting. It's exciting. I think, and so I hope that everyone can just spend some time playing around with AI tools, figure out how you can use them to make yourself more efficient. And I choose to look at the techno optimist view of the world, which is like, we have this amazing new tool that can help us all. And if we all got to be just like a creative director that got to focus on our superpowers of interacting with others and empathizing with our users and customers and collaborating with our team, like, I don't know, that's a workplace that I'd like.
The only, and this like maybe a controversial point of view, but I think the only way that we can be right now is optimists.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that you can be is an optimist, because unless everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet, and unless there needs to be this unity where everybody believes that there is an optimistic view of the future, because we're now at a point where, like, if we don't all think in that,
Yeah, and you can be optimistic about the future while still understanding that there will be challenges, real challenges to
100%.
overcome to get there.
Yeah, 100%.
But it helps to approach those challenges with the mindset of like, we're all going to figure this out, and it's going to be better once we get through to the other side.
What's it called? Like the rational optimist? I don't know whether it's a
Yeah.
book, but that's exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying there. You can be optimistic while still totally understanding there's a lot of work to do, right? So
Yeah.
no, it's great. So where can people find out more about you, Jacob, more about Relay? Like, tell us where to go.
Follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I post a lot, not too much about Relay. I post a lot about AI, how you can use it in your business. I host a lot of webinars, office hours, build with me sessions, and so I'd love to see you join one.
Perfect. And it's, what is it, relay.app? That's the website?
https://relay.app is the company site. My LinkedIn is linkedin.com/JacobBank. And our YouTube channel is also relay.app.
Perfect. No, that's been amazing, Jacob. And I feel like we need a round 2, because like,
Yeah. Well, let's see in 3 months where AI is then, and then the conversation may be different.
maybe next week.
Yeah.
All right, Jacob. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, Adam. Have a great
Appreciate you
weekend.
coming on.
Yeah.
You too.
Hey again, and thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, review, and subscribe. And for more goodies, head over to adamshilton.com.